Does anyone know, do I need, do I need to start this meeting over again with the recording? Or is the fact that, no, but legally it doesn't have to be recorded, right? So
Dover Sherborn Cable TV bailed me out. They patched the recording in one time for me from the beginning because they logged into Zoom also.
You haven't conducted any business yet anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you missed a liaison report, which was a good one, but
yeah, I mean,
it's not like you've taken any votes.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, let's just move forward. All right, I am going to show the screen here. Okay, can everybody see that, and is it legible for everybody?
Oh, good.
Great. All right. I guess Deb, if you can you do the rundown of I guess what you know here, and then if there are relevant department heads that wanted to go into more detail about their end of year budgets, that would be great as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that we need to do this per UMass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, that all deficits in the operating budget need to be covered by July the 15th. And the law states that the selectmen, with the concurrence of the Finance Committee, must approve the transfer. So it states that you don't have to meet together, but both you and the select board need to approve the transfer. So I appreciate you all taking the time tonight to approve this transfer. So as you can see, there are several departments that have deficits that total $393,300. The first being town council, which is the biggest one for $185,100. And again, you know, we budget the same amount every year, and this is an unanticipated legal assistance. So I don't know if anybody has any questions in regard to that.
I guess my immediate question is, how does that compare to the previous, I guess, 3-year trend?
Yeah, so last year we were at 235,000. FY20 we were at 206,000, and FY19 130,000. So it has been going up steadily over the past several years.
Those numbers that you just stated, was that the total legal expense, or was that the amount that the legal expense was over?
That is the total. That is the total legal expense.
So this year actually has the highest total legal expense of the past 5 years, basically.
It does. It does.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we know? I know Jeff Waldron, the select board chair, is here. Are you even allowed to sort of give a high level overview of where that was spent, or is that all sort of executive privilege stuff?
No, I think these vary from year to year, almost like snow and ice. For example, whenever we have big union contracts, particularly the teachers union, that's a year when it's usually higher. And we just finished the DPW, or I think we're about to finish that, and the police union contract this year. So those were mainly in the prior fiscal year. I actually think the library costs right now, library legal costs are in the library budget, so they're not part of this.
That's correct.
We had legal costs associated with the termination of town administrator's contract. I don't know. Can you think of any other major things, Sean? I don't.
There is some fees for the situation with the police chief as well.
Yes, but that's part of that's defended by Clarity, which is covered by our insurance, I believe. This is for the termination of Chief Thompson.
And then I guess the Hunting Lane issue, is that sort of been an ongoing legal expense?
That is also, yeah, several development issues are.
Okay.
And I think this possibly Silverwood also.
Oh yeah, of course.
So.
All right, yeah. So just trying to get a feel for what are the drivers of this kind of increase over the past few years, and sort of wanting to project forward in terms of what we might anticipate next year. Diane, go ahead.
Oh, hi, Steve. So besides what Jeff mentioned, we have had a myriad of public records requests that we've had to send to town council, and that has added up to quite a bit of money. We have had a lot of public records requests within the last 7 or 8 months that have come into the thousands of dollars because we need counsel.
Hey, Diane,
Yes.
I'm curious. So what type of those requests is that information that the town is supposed to be making available, yet we don't have access to it, or we don't keep our own files? Why is there outside counsel needed to answer those questions?
Well, because when we get a public records request for years worth of documents and emails that have to be looked at by council, and when we have to hire an IT person to go through the emails and dig out the ones that look like they might be part of the request. And then council has to review them and then redact them so that they can go out. And we've had a few of those that have amounted to a good amount of money.
And Diane, do you know, or could you share those related?
I really don't want to share those.
Well, let me just finish my question. Related of the different topics that we just listed, related to any of those topics, or is that?
No, they're not. I don't believe they're related to any of the topics
Okay,
that we just talked about.
okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Daryl, go ahead.
I was just going to mention that one of the things that town council did this year was to work with us to try to streamline the process for responding and make it more consistent. And I think that'll be helpful in the long term for that. And I also think it led to just the challenge of that before, for example, some of the board and committee members had town email. I can say I spent 10 hours for one public records request alone to go through emails and sort out. I mean, I did get 5,000 a year during COVID emails and Board of Health, but it's going to be so much simpler, I think, in the future. So maybe money well spent.
Great. Thanks. Any other questions related to town council line?
Maybe we should see if we can get a junior associate to help us with those FOIA requests.
Paralegal, baby.
Or paralegal.
Great. Any other questions or comments about town council? All right, if not, let's move on to IT.
Yes, we need a transfer of $64,500 to the IT department. This is actually a new department. There was $35,000 that was budgeted within the selectmen's budget for this, which I then transferred to this new department once this new department was approved. But that $35,000 really did not align with the historical cost. We have for fiscal year 23 budgeted a much more transparent number that aligns with the actuals that we have seen over the recent years.
So the FY23 number would be enough to cover this 65,000 or so.
Yeah, the FY23 number is 109,000. So this 64,000 is the transfer that's needed in addition to the $35,000 that we budgeted. So we actually spent, $99,000 this year. So next year we budgeted 109,000, which should more than be enough to cover our IT expenses for FY23.
Okay. And do you happen to know, again, I don't need a very detailed breakdown, but is that sort of more equipment, more contractual services, or more salary in terms of what's going into that 64,500 number?
It's a little bit of everything. The biggest expense was network support, which was about $19,000. We had some IT consultant fees. We did start paying a IT position. Klaus comes in and we pay him a stipend every month. It's just a little bit of everything that just all added up.
Great. Any questions about IT from anyone?
I'm not sure it's in there, Steve, but we also upgraded our telephone network, the Harbor telephone network. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that's in that budget or not, but
It is
Yeah.
in this budget, yes.
so that was not a one-time expense, but probably a periodic, every 3 or 4 years, upgrading some of the hardware in our switches and telecom network.
Great. All right, conservation, 9,000.
Yes, we need $9,000 to cover additional charges that were due to the agent position hours were increased to meet the staffing needs. We have taken care of that in FY '23. Budget does reflect the staff increase.
Okay, and
I know.
that was the move from a part-time to full-time agent in the middle of the fiscal year, is that right?
That is correct. I think Michael is here if you have any questions for him.
I don't have any questions, but if anyone else from advisory, and I guess I always want to disclose that my wife is on the Conservation Commission. So I, of course, know intimately what this is about, but if anybody else has any questions, please feel free.
So I just wanted to follow up. So that amount is baked into next year's budget. Is that person still full-time at this point in time? Is that role filled?
It was filled for about 7 months and then she resigned at the end of June. So it is currently vacant.
But we are going to rehire.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions about conservation? All right, moving on to town buildings, 24,000.
So we need $24,100 to transfer to town buildings. Mostly we had budgeted for a clerk of the works salary for half of the year, but since the library is not done, we continued to pay that stipend, which amounted to about $11,000. And then there was additional alarm and elevator service maintenance contracts of about $13,000. Sean is here if you have any questions in regards to this.
The additional alarm and elevator service, was that like something broke down that was unanticipated and then had to get fixed?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I didn't want to use up 3 lines trying to explain it, so I'm glad you asked. I mean, most of the alarm is, failures and replacing wood or small items. The elevator is basically compliance issues with, we got hit in this year and we're going to get hit. So with the fire elevator had to be upgraded to follow a new regulatory code for the fire code, and town hall is actually, I just signed the order to do it. And those, we can't really capitalize those. That's a repair. It's considered a repair. So we capitalize if we were doing a significant overhaul or, installing a new elevator, but that'd be hundreds of thousands. So as we know, we've talked a lot over the years that there's quite a bit of stuff we've been capitalizing that's truly not capital. It should be in this budget. So specific line items are a little bit all over the place, the way the budget was built, but it's actually pretty, it's closer to on budget than I thought it was going to be.
Okay. Anybody else have questions about town buildings? All right, moving on to sustainability.
Yes, sustainability, we need $16,000 transfer to fund this. This again was a new department. It was budgeted in the select board budget when we did the budgets in FY '22, and then I transferred it to this new department once it was created, and the budget that was in the select board budget really did not align with the historical cost. I think if you remember going through the FY '23 budget, this is definitely going to be more transparent and aligns with the actual cost.
So this 16,000, is this primarily salary to our 2 sustainability coordinators?
That's exactly what it is. So in FY '21, the sustainability expense without that grant was $62,000. This year we have $54,000 worth of salary expense, and next year we're budgeting 68,000.
Okay.
So I feel like we definitely have FY23 covered, but it really wasn't very transparent this year.
Anybody have questions about sustainability? All right, on to Pine Hill Schools, 15,000.
Yep, we're requesting $15,000. Basically, most of it is $8,000 is due to a fuel surcharge for school bus transportation, and another $7,000 for van transportation for the in-district sped students. Dawn is here if you have any questions in regards to this.
Dawn, are those things covered in the FY23 budget? I mean, I would imagine fuel is not going down, right?
Well, in March, we didn't know fuel was going to be as crazy as it was. We do have a fuel adjustment clause in our bus contract. So it hovers within 20 cents range of $3.20. So as you can see that we were hit pretty hard April, May, and June. We did increase all 3 school budgets for fuel adjustments. We'd actually had been deleting them, actually had decreased them because we weren't experiencing any fuel credit adjustments, and especially in Sherborn where we're trying to budget down to the penny, we really didn't have any in the budget. So we did, you have $4,000 in the budget for next year. So that's half of what it turned out to be, but our hope is that the fuel costs will go down a little bit and it will at least have some cushion for any fuel charges for next year. The van transportation was, it was some in-district students that in their IEP could not ride the school bus. And so we did have van transportation. We halfway budgeted for that because we didn't want to over budget in case it wasn't in the IEP for them to get transportation. So we'll be able to cover hopefully that with some of our other special education transportation that's in our out of district budget.
Great. Any other questions?
I'll just summarize. We normally don't come, I think, to advisory for transfers. We did have a lot of other cost overruns and salaries for substitutes, for additional educational assistance. We were able to cover all of that with some of our grants and revolving funds, but it made sense to me on the transportation not to dip into revolving funds and sort of our ESSER grants and leave that for school needs next year. So that's why I felt like I could easily identify true unbudgeted transportation costs to request additional appropriation this year.
Great, thank you, Dawn. Anyone from advisory have questions about the Pine Hill School budget? All right, moving on, Norfolk Aggie, 24,000.
Yes, there was no budget in FY22 because we didn't think there were going to be any students going to Norfolk Aggie, and we ended up with 1 student attending. So this is just to cover that cost.
Great. Okay, so we'll move on. Transfer station, $5,000 for
Actually, may I just, what is Norfolk agricultural?
It's I don't. Oh, you probably know better than I do.
It's a vocational school that if you're in Norfolk County, you're a member, and it's very inexpensive option to go to, but you're in Middlesex, so you're sort of a out of district, I would say, a school that goes to Norfolk Aggie, but it's an agricultural school that's considered a vocational school. So since your vocational school doesn't offer agricultural program, students are allowed to go to a non-member school.
I see. And this is middle or high school level?
This is high school.
High school.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
One other point is John Dowse is on the advisory committee for Norfolk Agricultural also.
Oh, is he on Norfolk Aggie as well as Tri-County?
Oh, is it Tri-County that he's on? Yeah,
I
you
believe
might
he's
be
on
right.
Tri
He's on
County.
Tri
Makes
County.
more sense because Tri-County is your vocational school, where
Yeah.
Minuteman is Dover's vocational school, because we like to
Hmm.
keep things very
thought-
complicated.
I thought he was Norfolk too, but I may be wrong. I take that back.
Any other questions about the Norfolk Aggie situation? Nope. All right, moving on to transfer station, $5,000 for a repair issue.
Yep, this was a utility repair issue. I think that, again, Sean would probably be better able to explain what this is about.
So anyone that went through the dump in midwinter saw that we were running it on a generator for the better part of a month. We actually had an electrical fault that it almost caused a fire. Either way, underground fault that had happened, I think due to frost, but we needed to fix it. It would cost a lot more than that, but that's the only influence on the budget. A couple items were low, a few we hit pretty much right on, which with the market the way it is and recycling turned on its head the past few years, we guessed pretty good where we were going to land. And then the only other item that was high in the budget, but it kind of washed out, was transportation hauling, which of course we're seeing huge fuel surcharges there. This next year will probably be a little more painful than last year because of fuel.
Yeah. All right, any questions about transfer station? All right, on to Board of Health.
Yes, we need to transfer about $26,000 to cover the cost of additional pay for the increase of hours due to COVID. We initially thought that we would be using ARPA money to cover this, but because we do have enough money in other budgets, we thought we would leave ARPA money for other things and cover this with a transfer.
So this is essentially additional hours since the last ARPA fund transfer, is that right?
Yeah, we did transfer the first quarter of the Board of Health agents' increased hours to the ARPA fund. And then after that, we just decided to let it sit in the Board of Health budget.
And then I guess this is a question for Daryl, but how has the trend been over the course of the past 2 years in terms of the number of additional hours needed for the health agent? Is it trending down or is it still?
Well, okay, that is a complex question on the
No,
strictly COVID front. Sorry. But it was a beautiful intro to what I've been thinking about. So certainly the level of effort on COVID very specifically has been going down in the prior fiscal year through till now. Some of the side effects from COVID were just a really hot real estate market, as I'm sure everybody was aware of. So we had nearly double the amount of applications going on. So it was just a really busy time for that. A bunch of the public records requests were on COVID issues. And as we go, we're still doing some stuff as we go through changes in the status and the nature of COVID, and just those transition periods bring up a lot of questions from people and what have you, and adjustments to procedures. However, so one thing I'll say is, I mean, our Ellen just worked round the clock the first year and nearly round the clock the second year. And it was so hard for her to even take vacation time because there is so much work coming in to the Board of Health on the services side. That's really the kind of department that we are. So I don't see that changing. This problem has been coming for a long time, and I think this is just recent events have highlighted that we've lived with the same level of staffing for 30 years or more in town, and the demands have gone up. The requirements of things that the Board of Health has to check on and do, and even just paperwork associated with flu clinics is more than quadrupled, I'd say, time-wise. So I think we're going to have to start talking about what we do to accommodate that, which is pretty much why we had also pitched the idea of a public health nurse, not because we think we need someone who's doing public health services all the time as a nurse, but that there are a few of the things we could offload to someone, but they have to have the qualifications that a public nurse has. And then we're hoping that we can find somebody who is willing to do some of the other Board of Health functions in addition to nursing types of functions. So we will bring that up again in a quieter period if that ever happens. And so I do foresee the budget going up. We've also had a few, some of the bigger projects coming in are very time consuming. Some of the issues with certain establishments in town have just demanded much more time than we usually encounter. And hopefully this is just a blip, but we're not sure.
Are you planning on any time in the maybe intermediate term future, sort of revisiting sort of the Board of Health staffing overall with the Personnel Board?
Yes, we're going to have to, because again, just Ellen had vacation time, and believe me, she wanted time off during the last 2 years and was having a hard time finding a moment where she could step away without things really backing up, or not important time sensitive things not getting done. So when she did take time off, she was constantly getting pulled back into work because we couldn't function without the extra power, human power. And then when she came back from a brief amount of time off, it was just torture because it again required an extraordinary effort to catch up. So, and she is really efficient. She knows her stuff inside out. Like, she's pretty remarkable on that. So she's very fast and efficient. And yet it's hard.
Does the town administrator have any oversight over Board of Health staff, or is that entirely under your purview since you're an elected board?
It has been under our purview.
Okay.
And I think anyone, I certainly know from being chair, and even just being on the board and witnessing what the staff does, we have, and given our meetings and that they're very engaged in everything at the meetings, or behind the scenes and leading up to the meetings, we have, as a board, we have a really good understanding of how they're spending their time. So.
All right, anybody from advisory have more questions about Board of Health? All right, if not, we'll move on to other insurance, professional insurance for 24,000.
Yes, we need this to cover the insurance cost that was not budgeted in FY22. We have budgeted that in FY23. There was a little, it was a misunderstanding actually on my part, because when I first stepped into the role, there was professional insurance and insurance for police and fire. And I thought they were one and the same. So I eliminated the professional insurance and then came to realize that there were two separate line items. So we have taken care of this in FY23.
Great.
All
right, so that's all of the overages, right? Does anybody from advisory have any additional questions there? And I want to move on to the surpluses. All right, so now these letters are smaller. Can everyone still read that, or do I need to blow it up?
Good.
Still looks good. All right, so we have the overages on the left, now our surpluses on the right here. I think in the interest of time, I'm mostly going to ignore the rather small 4-digit numbers, at least, probably most of the 5-digit numbers as well. But I want to, let's see, call out the police total 148. That one is obviously big. So is that mostly from salary, from not having a police chief for a certain amount of time?
Yes, it is mostly salary. Some of it is from not having a police chief, but some of it is also from not funding the dispatchers. And so they were understaffed for a good portion of the year.
Can you remind me, we didn't have a police overtime supplemental appropriation this year, did we?
We did not.
Okay. But I believe that the overtime line item was still over budget, right?
It was.
But basically it was simply able to be covered by the other salary surpluses.
Yes, that's
on top
correct.
of it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So we were under budget in the police chief by 53,000 and in regular salaries by 216,000, but we were over budget by 156,000 in overtime. So hopefully next year, those will all balance out, the way they're supposed to.
Great. Let's see, I guess I'll just call out a couple and then I'll give the rest of advisory another. Oh, go ahead.
Could I just add in on the police, that's why we're doing the regional dispatch center. We actually had a lot of police officer overtime because they were covering for dispatchers. They couldn't hire dispatchers. So we had police officers that had to fill in as dispatchers. And that will, not only the savings in the first three or 4 years of the regional dispatch center will be good, but we'll also be paying dispatcher salaries as opposed to officer salaries who are dispatchers.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. Let's see. What did I want to see? Council on Aging, 11,000. Mostly just because I don't remember the overall budget number for Council on Aging, but I assume that represents a sizable chunk of their budget. What was the driver behind that?
Yeah, their total budget is about 154,000.
Okay, that's higher than I remember.
And most of their savings came from transportation. They did get a grant for transportation, which was so they saved about $5,000 there. They also, I don't know, they're under budget in their exercise program by 3,000. I think some of that might have to do with they joined with the recreation department and did their exercise programs together. But those are really the big numbers that are jumping out when I'm looking at this. They were under budget by $1,600 in meetings and seminars, which they probably didn't attend because of COVID.
Okay. Let's see, library total, I assume that's mostly due to still not being open.
Yes, they're not fully staffed.
Yeah. Debt service, is that mostly driven by interest rates?
A little bit of that. Heidi, I think Heidi's on the call. She can probably speak
Yeah.
better to it. But we
Sure.
do, okay.
It was, interest rates were a huge factor. And then the other factors I had anticipated doing a long-term bond before now, trying to get it in this last fiscal year, but because the asbestos hold up at the library, it pushed it off. And so we did save a lot of money not going for the long-term bond and getting a payment in this fiscal year, which is one of the reasons why our debt service is going up so much next year. And unfortunately, due to the interest rates, will be over budget before the fiscal year is even started here. We'll know next week. So.
Yeah, so this may be one step forward and then 2 steps back.
Yeah, no, I wish we had it, but the interest rates were so good. It just did not anticipate it going down that low.
Okay. And then employee benefits, 96,000. Is that just based on what people chose for their health insurance?
A little bit of that, but also they gave us half a month of premium holiday for the fiscal year 2022, which saved us some money as well.
DS regional assessment 285. Dawn, I guess if you want to speak to that. Also,
That's
approximately
the
what
turn back.
percentage? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's the turn back. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
that's the turn back. So you won't see that number next year.
Yeah.
It is there from last year.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was like, I didn't know if that was on top of the turn back or something separate from it, but because I didn't remember the number that the turn back was.
Yeah, that was your portion of about 600,000 that was turned back.
Great. Okay, anybody else from advisory have any questions about the various budget surpluses? All right, so then it looks like we are asking for a total transfer of $393,200, and that's going to give us a net budget surplus of $721,578.26. Is that right?
That's correct.
Great. So sort of mechanically, how does this work? What, in terms of what we have to actually move and vote on, do we need to move each of these individual things, the reserve, the police, and the employee benefits, or can we just move the total transfer?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think just to be on the safe side, we probably should do it individually.
Okay. Do we have to vote each one individually, or can we move each
I think you
individual
can
number as
move-
one thing?
Move as one thing, but
Great.
just note them individually.
All right. All right, so can I get someone from advisory to make a motion relative to these transfers? And I ask that you specify the exact amount that is being transferred from the listed accounts there.
Steve, do you need someone to rattle off both columns there for each row? Is that what you're looking for?
I think we only need the transfer on the left column where it says reserve 219, police 100, employee benefits 74, because that's all we're doing is that we are moving money from those accounts, right? We don't need to actually specify which ones they're going into. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we just our action is to move money from those specific accounts into the other ones, but we only have to name the ones that they're coming from.
Gotcha. All right, I'll take it. I move that we move $219,000 from the reserve fund, $100,000 from the police budget, and $74,200 from the employee benefits, a total of $393,200 to fulfill the unfunded budget items from fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that before I take a roll call vote? All right, hearing none. Let's do a vote. Steve Leahy.
Aye.
Dan Sickle.
Aye.
Wasim Basili.
Aye.
Mark Albers.
Aye.
Brendan Daly.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye, so the motion passes. Great, and I believe that covers all that we need. That's all you need from us, right, Deb?
That's correct.
Thanks. I also, before we close, I do want to call out specifically Stephen Leahy, Brendan Daly, and Mark Albers, for all of whom this will be their final advisory meeting. I thank you all very much for your service. I'm somewhat jealous of the fact that you now get to not be on advisory when I have another year here. But again, thank you very much for your contributions over the years. All right.
Kind words,
and
please.
Thanks, Steve. It was a
we
pleasure.
will
Thank
miss
you.
you. We will miss you guys.
Yeah, thank you. It's all the school reps, but thank you.
I know,
Pleasure.
I know. Oh my God, I don't even know what we're gonna do about school reps. At least Jane is still here, so Jane's gonna have to teach a couple new people about the schools. Great, and I think we will set a next meeting date probably sometime over email, because I don't actually even know who the official members of the advisory committee will be, so we won't do that now. And there's no minutes to vote on, so I believe that's the end of our meeting. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, Steve Leahy.
Aye.
Dan Sickle,
Aye.
Wasim Basili.
Aye.
Mark Albers,
Aye.
Brendan Daly,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. Thank you all very much.
Steve, just to make sure I'm not duplicating efforts, I'm writing up minutes, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, that's great. I will do that.
Great, thanks, Dan.
Nice job, guys.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.